talk some Oasis. So can I call you Brian, Mr. Garcia,
no.
or Oasis DNA?
Yeah,
What do we call you?
Brian is completely fine. I respond to other bad words, but but Brian is what usually works.
Wonderful. And so we would just yeah. So you were just talking to me before we pressed record that you grew up in small town in what, West Texas?
In West Texas, yeah, it's a decent sized city, about 140,000 people. It's called San Angelo, Texas. West Texas, it's a bit away from any major city in Texas, but Texas, you have to keep in mind, is huge. It takes
Ridiculous.
an hour drive, not an hour drive, but about 9 hours to get from the longest point in Texas to the other point. And that's just one state. So yeah, so it's pretty big, but it's getting summer here, so it's getting very very warm.
And so did you grew up in the same town?
I went to school in Austin at UT. I lived in Austin for about 11 years. Worked in a sushi restaurant while I was going to school for a bit. Graduated, stayed there for a couple of years, and then I moved back to San Angelo. Just the cost of living in Austin was ridiculous. It's very hard to save money for a family and live and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool place though. I mean, I'd love to go over for South by Southwest.
Oh, it's incredible. It's where Noel recorded "Talk Tonight" and I think what "Good to Be Free" maybe, something like that.
Yeah,
I think. Definitely "Talk Tonight." Yeah, he recorded it in Austin. So here's when he had the little Melissa Lim getaway.
Little sojourn.
Yeah, there you go. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, no, it was nice. I thought, going off topic, it was nice that was featured quite heavily in Supersonic. I was quite surprised. I always know that as a thing that happened, but they really played up on it. They featured it quite a lot, didn't they?
Yeah, I was really I'd known Melissa about a year or two before Supersonic had come out, and I was wondering if they were going to mention that when first time I sat down in the theater. Funnily enough, I saw Supersonic for the first time in Manchester, so that was a double treat. So yeah, they featured her, and I don't think they ever mentioned her name, which I wish they would have. But she's a great girl, and she's just very down to earth, and I'm happy that she got mentioned in that.
So how did you come to know Melissa then?
Actually through Brian Cannon, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
So Brian and I have been friends for probably about we've known each other online for about 4 years, talked for 4 years now, but officially, about 3 years. We met at Chasing the Sun, London. I remember going down there for the first time with my then girlfriend, which is my wife now, Fernanda. She and I went down to the Oasis exhibition the day before they opened, and I had made Brian an Oasis plaque that I brought all the way from Texas, got it on the plane, wrapped it up safely. And I remember I waited across the street because I was terrified. I was like, oh my God, it's Brian Cannon. What is he going to do if I see him? and then I spoke to Lawrence Watson. He was a curator for that. And I spoke to him for a bit, and I was like, hey, is Brian in there? And he's like, yeah, he may come out here in a bit. Anyway, my wife and I were terrified, so we go across the street and we wait with this plaque. And I see Brian walk out of the exhibition because I guess he was setting up that day.
Mm-hmm.
And he was having a cigarette on the side of the building, and I walk up next to him and I go, Mr. Cannon, and he looks at me and he turns, and he goes, Brian Garcia, and I was like, oh my God, he knows who I am. And that was a big shock. But yeah, we talked to each other on social media, but you never really know if people really recognize you just because you chat with them online. And he did. He's a great guy. But that's how we officially started our friendship that is continuing on strong.
No, and he mentioned you on that episode, doesn't he? And he's sort of, so what you've gone and stayed with him, or he's
I've stayed several occasions with him, about 3 times now. He actually did my engagement photo when I proposed to my wife. He took us out to this remote place, Wastwater in the Lakes and Lake District, and he took the most amazing photo. Not just because we're in it or whatever, but because Brian Cannon took it. The photo itself is just incredible. And if you were there, it took him literally. We'd been drinking the whole night before, so my wife was terribly hungover. We're going through all these windy roads up in the Lake District, and she was about to puke in the back seat. And finally, we get to our location. She had no idea this was going on, so I get my little handheld camera out. I'm pretending to take pictures of her, and she's like, "Hurry up and take a picture." And all this time, I knew Brian was setting up for the shot. And literally, from the moment we got off his car to the moment he snapped that picture, I think it took about maybe 3 minutes total.
Yeah.
He put 2 flashes down, got on one knee, snap, 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 snap. He looked at me. He said, "Go for it," and that was it. He pulled the pin, threw the grenade. That's it. Brian Cannon, he's amazing.
He's a top man, and he's like the that's the mad thing for me with getting him on the podcast is it's like he's just a bloke, like sort of that's kind of what you have to think about, because these people that do really great work, some really important work that means so much to you growing up, and then it's like when you speak to them, it's like, oh yeah, he's just a normal bloke sitting in his house in the Lake District, and and has his exhibitions and does these little bits and pieces, and that's it. It's just it so happens that some of the stuff he's done has made a massive impact in all our lives.
Yeah, it's changed my life and the way I look at it. It really has. And he's just salt of the earth, and guys, just what you see is what you get with Brian. There's no he's honest, he's raw. What you see is what you get. There's no going around it, and he's just a great guy.
Yeah. So let's take it back to you then. This isn't the Brian Cannon episode, mate. We already did that one.
Yeah.
So you were. I'm just imagining little Brian Garcia growing up in San Angelo. What about music? When does music come into the Brian Garcia story?
Oh man, music it's always, since I can remember. I remember my first love affair, and I think I've always had like this. I just know I have like a very addictive personality when it comes to like music and collecting. It really is. I remember La Bamba came out, the movie. I got addicted to that song. I made my mom buy me this little wooden guitar. I was 5 years old. I thought I was Richie Valens. I thought I was Richie Valens. I was Mexican, so I thought I was Richie Valens. But then I grew up listening to everything, pop, MC Hammer, Cyndi Lauper. Guns N' Roses, and it slowly started going from the 80s into the 90s, and I slowly started getting into Stone Temple Pilots, all these American grunge bands, Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam, and then Nirvana. I don't think if Oasis wouldn't have come along, Nirvana would have been Oasis for me, because I was heavily into that. So I think it was that transition from that time in my life. I was about 13, 14, and Kurt just killed himself, and that's the same time that Definitely Maybe came out. And I think that was a perfect timing. I think if I was born any earlier or any later, I don't think it would have really had the same impact on me.
Yeah. I think it is such a interesting kind of confluence of events that and we haven't talked about that on this podcast yet, actually. But yeah, the death of Kurt Cobain was such a massive thing, and it was, because especially over here in the UK, the British kind of Britpop indie scene had gone very, very quiet, and there was bands like the baggy bands like Ride and early Blur and Charlatans and things like that, but they weren't huge, they weren't big, they weren't selling out arenas, and the big band that everyone was interested in was as you say, Guns N' Roses, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and then Nirvana, who were just absolutely huge. And then the Britpop thing was really such a as a reaction to that, and we didn't want kind of long-haired, scruffy, flannel-shirted guys anymore.
That's right.
It was the kick back to the the mod styles and the 60s styles and things. But
that was I think that was like the perfect transition, because I think everybody was kind of, although Nirvana was iconic, nobody I don't think will ever come close to being that iconic, for a scene. Because when you say grunge, you say alternative, it's like Nirvana. You don't really think of many other bands. But I think, kids were, in that, oh man, I just want to, everything's not very blue skies, everything's very grim, very Kurt Cobain-y. You wanted to act like your idols, and obviously Kurt Cobain was an idol for me. And I did kind of
Mm.
follow suit with that. And I think when Definitely Maybe came out, it was like it's when you get a cold shower, when that cold water hits you, it's like, and then you wake up and it's like, oh my God, where did this come from? And
Great.
that's exactly what Oasis was.
But how did they even? Can you remember first hearing Oasis? I
I,
just wouldn't have thought they would have made, especially definitely maybe,
yeah,
making that much of an impact
and
in sort of West Texas.
yeah, you're right. I remember because I was heavily into CD collecting at the time. I wasn't into vinyl. I was into CD collecting, and I remember I used to go like almost every day to a place called CD Warehouse and another place called Musicland. And I'd go in there and I'd look at new CDs, maybe what was out. I was into obviously collecting Nirvana, so I'd buy all the albums. I do remember when Definitely Maybe came out. I had heard it was a montage on MTV. I was watching MTV at the time back when they used to play music, of course.
Mhm.
It was like they had a montage of like I remember it was like Portishead. I think it was Sour Times on there.
Mhm.
Pearl Jam, and then at the end of the montage commercial, it was Live Forever, and I was like, wow, that song sounds kind of good, and I like that, Gonna Live Forever, and I was like, okay, I was like, let's go see who that band is. I couldn't find them for about 2 weeks, and then finally,
Mhm.
one of the guys at the music store is like, oh yeah, 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 that's this British band that just came out. That's our album over there. So I bought it. I listened to it, and you know what? To be honest, I didn't. It wasn't. It wasn't life changing, although it would make my story a lot more interesting if I said, "Yeah, Definitely Maybe changed my life."
Yeah.
I was their biggest fan, but it didn't happen like that. I bought Definitely Maybe. I listened to it. I thought it was all right. I was like, pretty good. I remember I bought Portishead too. Got into them, but I was still in Nirvana mode. It
Yeah.
wasn't. It wasn't until What's the Story? Morning Glory came out. I think I was in like 8th grade, 7th grade, that I remember listening to Don't Look Back in Anger. I remember I saw the world premiere video on MTV, and now that video, I literally remember the color of the carpet and the TV that I saw it on.
Yeah.
It changed my life forever, and I never looked back.
Wow. That was it.
Ironically
It
enough,
was
that
that
was it.
video. Yeah.
Yep, that was it, and yeah,
Yeah. I love that video. I mean, that's the, it was the confidence. It was the fact that they'd had the other videos that they'd done, but then that one suddenly the colors are so vibrant,
yeah, yeah,
in that video, aren't they? They're so with the colored sunglasses that I
yeah,
was wearing, and then it's just so vibrant. It's such a gorgeous sunny day,
yeah,
and yeah, they've got 1,000 Sallys and
yeah, yeah,
Patrick McNee, who was from the Avengers, not
yeah,
Iron Man, and
yeah. Just
but the original Avengers, and oh no, well, the British Avengers, will
right.
say, because
He
I think maybe the
recently
comics
passed
came
away,
before
didn't he?
that.
He passed away
Yeah, I
a
think
few months ago.
I
Yeah,
think about maybe 10 years ago or something. I think it was a little while ago. I think.
has it been?
I
Yeah,
don't know off the top of my head,
maybe.
but yeah. So it's yeah, it was just, but once again, even using him, it's like it's the ties to the '60s was so big, and I think I don't know if I mentioned this, but I remember hearing "Don't Look Back in Anger" Noel doing, and like he did a couple of acoustic songs, I think on Simon Mayo's show on Radio 1, and he did "Cast No Shadow" and he did "Don't Look Back in Anger," and they've probably been collected on various unplugged kind of bootlegs and things, but yeah, and "Don't Look Back in Anger" just from that point was like, this is special. This
Yeah,
is like
yeah,
this is a Hey Jude, or a this is something that's going.
yeah.
Just the structure of the song and everything about it. It's like,
Yeah,
come on.
you felt it. Yeah, you knew
Yeah.
something. You knew something was going to happen. You were on the verge of something very, very big, and that's
Yeah, yeah.
that's exactly the way I felt. That's a perfect way to describe it.
Good. What about? I mean, I'm sort of trying to paint the picture of little Brian in
Yeah.
in high school or
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh, so man, I was in high school. I wish I could show everyone pictures of my room. It was covered, literally. I remember I made color photocopies, and in those days, to make a color photocopy was very expensive. And every little piece of money I had, I went and made Kurt Cobain photocopies of every magazine that I had, and I plastered every inch of my wall, top to bottom, with Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. He was the reason I played guitar, but then I discovered how easy Wonderwall was to play. And then from there on, I thought I was Noel Gallagher.
Well, that's the beauty. I mean, that's the beautiful thing. I mean, I'm not a guitarist at any level, and I've seen your YouTube videos, and you're really good guitarist and a good singer as well.
Thank you.
So obviously, everyone check out. I don't know if you're aware of Brian's YouTube channel where you do a lot of Oasis covers, and yeah, really nice, really lovely stuff. So check that out.
Thank you,
listeners. But it's something I've been meaning to ask a guitar player on one of these. The way Noel plays, where he's using his bottom two fingers just on that, just constantly pressed down. So it gives it this lovely,
it's almost like a chorus. Like when you hit those last two, it kind of gives it like a choral sound. It's like, wow, and it's very bright. Yeah, I hear a lot of people mention his playing style. Maybe some say it's lazy, some say it's but I actually love the way it sounds.
But I think, and I don't know if I know they didn't make as much of an impact over there, but I think especially here it was so great because I could pick up a guitar, you could watch Noel on Live by the Sea DVD and VHS at the time, and just go, okay, so all he does, he holds those two fingers down, and the ones on top move about a little bit. It's not like you're watching these sort of great guitar players like a John Squire or someone whose their hands are flying up and down the neck, and you just think, how are they doing that? That's impossible. I think, well, no, I can do that. You just have to hold it still, and then you move the top ones a little bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, to this day, it's still to tune a guitar. It's just Talk Tonight with with that you can just play that that
opening
E minor.
Opening chord and Talk Tonight. Tenor for the woman in the black there. Oh, that one never gets old. I love that.
This is what the Oasis podcast is all about, everybody. But yeah, yes. So that's like it's so inclusive. Once again, it's that thing of everyone could do this. You could pick up that guitar and you could look at anyone can figure out how to play Wonderwall.
Right.
You just stick the two fingers down and the top ones have to wiggle about a bit, and that's it. Anyone can do it, and so that's why it's sort of, it might be a bit lazy, but it's got such a lovely sound, and as I say, it's so inclusive. But yeah, there we go. And so was it around the same time that you'd got into guitar playing through Kurt Cobain, and then obviously Oasis come along and that changes it again.
Oh yeah, Oasis came along. I remember when the Supernova came out. I remember I went down to my local guitar shop and I was like, I opened up the catalog and I said, I want that guitar. And he's like, okay, if you want a British flag on it, it's up to you. And I just remember when it finally came in and it arrived, I opened it and I was just like, it was like the holy grail at that time in my life. And I just remember putting it on the guitar stand and I'd literally lay on my bed and look at it and play my I would sing to it playing my Red Acoustic, my Fender Red Acoustic, and I was like this is what it means, this is what life is about. Yes. And I specifically remember that, and I remember I babied that guitar forever and I put it back in its case, and I only recently got it out until recently. So
but would you even it's like that that scene in Spinal Tap where he goes where the filmmaker goes to touch his guitar. He says, no, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't even look at it. Don't even look at it.
Yeah, that's how I was.
If anyone came into your room, would they be allowed to go anywhere near it?
No. That would go in its case, and they can fool about with all my other guitars and whatnot. I had plenty of things to break in my room at that time.
So and so when did you first see Oasis live then?
2000. This is very late, and you have to remember, I didn't see them until about 2005.
Okay.
It was drove up to. Actually, I literally drove a day and a half up to Boston. Wow. From Texas to Boston. So I drove a day and a half to go see my first ever Oasis gig, because I don't remember when exactly. It was during the summer, but I remember thinking, if I don't go to this gig, I won't go to another Oasis gig until they probably come back to the States. And so I took time off. I took about 2 weeks off, drove up to Boston, and I met some really incredible people. Evan Grodinsky, if you're listening, shout out to you, man. So I met Evan there, and I'm friends with him to this day. His birthday was day before yesterday, as a matter of fact. So happy belated birthday, Evan. But yeah, and that was my first experience, and it, like I said, I saw Evan in a it was called a shop and pick and pack or something, shop and save. Anyway, I was buying some groceries, and he saw that I was wearing an Oasis shirt, and he starts screaming in the parking lot, "Be here now!" And I just remember that. And when we went to go park, I guess he saw me park there early. I showed up to the gig about 6 hours early, and he showed up about 4 hours early, and we just hung out in the parking lot. We played Oasis tunes on my acoustic, and
awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
It's that camaraderie of fans that you just don't get with other bands.
Yeah.
It's such a special thing that Oasis fans share. And and all the talk of Oasis having split up now, and will they get back together? Won't they? Is that good? I ran a Twitter poll on it, and it came out very close. I think it was like 60-40. Yes, they should get back together, but whether or not for the sake of Noel or for the sake of Liam, or that for me is what we've been missing, is that ability to go and see them, and it be such a journey and be such a special day. And even,
I think
that's
exactly right.
Not going to get that. Yeah.
I did answer that poll, by the way.
You answered that poll as well.
Yeah,
Which way did you vote?
I voted no. But no? I know there's going to be a lot of Oasis fans probably yelling at their screen right now saying, "You idiot!" But believe me, I will be the very first one to be buying Oasis reunion tickets if they ever happen.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm joining you with that, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Good. And then so we've got so the live thing. So you saw them in 2005. Did you see them again after that?
Yeah, I saw them in 2005. I think I saw them again, and I don't think I saw them again. I don't remember the exact year. I was in college. We drove to Houston to see them. Saw them in Houston. Then I saw them at ACL, which is the Austin City Limits Music Festival. Got front row. Almost caught Liam's tambo. I was very, very upset. So, guy, whoever out there, you caught the tambo. I'm watching you.
And I mean, what did your friends think? So you're really getting into Oasis. Was there the impression I've got, and I say I've done interviews with a couple of American guys so far, and it's just been, they were on the radio. Wonderwall was big, Don't Look Back in Anger, Champagne Supernova were all big, but it was just another band that had a couple of songs on the radio. But I mean, were you just like the one kid in your school wearing an Oasis shirt, or how was that?
Yeah, I was the one kid who was like the Oasis fan. I remember even when I went off to college, I put a Oasis badge on my backpack, and I was like, oh yeah, Oasis this, Oasis that, and I met one guy who was probably as mad as I was for Oasis. His name is Jesus Ariola. If you're listening, man, shout out to you. But no, you know what? People are like, oh yeah, they sing what's that song? And I'm like, Wonderwall. They're like, yeah, and that's about as far as it goes. And I always get either if I say, oh yeah, I'm into Oasis, and they're like, oh yeah, Wonderwall, the brothers that are always fighting. I go through TSA, and people see my Oasis logo that's tattooed on my leg, and they're like, the brothers that always fight. I'm like, yep, that's them.
Yep, that's the thing that everyone knows.
Yeah, and that's usually about where the conversations ends. Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova, and brothers fighting.
Yeah, and that's about it.
Yep.
But no, it's and that's the sad thing, and that's why really one of the purposes for doing this is that there is so much more to the story, and
there is,
and there's
everyone,
in both in the band themselves and also in the fans of the band. And so that's why I think that we needed to do this, man, because there's no, we've got to tell these stories, and that is good. But so I've just this lovely image of there's Brian. You're in your Oasis shirt.
Yeah.
What's everyone else? What's everyone else rocking at this time?
In the '90s, they were rocking.
Hip hop.
Hip hop was pretty big. Britney Spears was big. It was kind of a boring time for music right after 2000, and I just remember a lot of guys in. Here, people wear shorts all the time, so just guys in shorts and polos and whatnot. And by that time, I was already, getting up past graduation age, so I was on my way to college, and it was just a different scene. It was
Hmm.
didn't have any Oasis fans really to relate with.
No, no. And then so do you start getting into? I suppose the internet's up and running now. So is it? Are you then online? You're sort of getting in,
I am.
speaking to
I
Oasis fans in the UK at that point.
You know what? It wasn't until, and I think that's another reason that Oasis, maybe I guess people would say, didn't break the states, because in the '90s, you had dial up, and reaching out to people was very very hard. You had a few chat rooms, but it wasn't to the extent you have
Hmm.
now. Now
No.
you can send pictures with the click of a button. You can send
Mm.
information. You can send voice messages. You can get all sorts of information within 5 minutes. But yeah, I started getting online more often. I started kind of collecting things here and there. I'd buy, a small thing on eBay, maybe a little promo coin or um, a little promo item, and I'd keep it. And to me, it was the biggest thing in the world. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, I never thought I'd have one of these. There's only 500 in the world, and I was like, I have one. And it's slowly, the internet, I think, has not has, or I think has, it has allowed me to grow the collection, I think, to what it is now. Because when I first started collecting, I'd maybe meet a person or two on eBay, and they're like, oh, did you like that item? They're like, I have a couple more items that I think you might like if you like that one. And then I'd start posting pictures online. I'd be like, hey guys, um, I have this promo item, and then people start slowly seeing that your items either get a little bit rarer or that you're very serious about it, and
Mhm.
then it just kind of snowballed from there. And I really don't even know when it came from maybe just like a passive hobby to something that is almost like my collection controls me at times right now. It's
Yeah.
very it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't control my collection. Like my collection tells me what to do. Like right now, I've got a I've got a full studio drum kit in my living room, which God bless my wife, she puts up with. And so I'm trying to find a
So
spot for that right now.
so where's the drum kit from?
That is Alan White's Ludwig drum kit. It's a Blue Oyster Pearl drum kit that he used for the recording of "Be Here Now."
Oh.
Yeah, so yeah, there's some photos of him playing it at Air Studios '97 that Jill Furmanovsky took. That it matches the exact fingerprint of the oyster pearl pattern, so there's no doubt.
Yeah.
And
There's no doubt.
obviously Alan wrote a letter with it, so that's
Yes.
Hard Rock Provenance. I bought
From
it
someone
from
else.
from one of his friends, who, funny enough, was Alan. But funnily enough, my friend Chris um, got me in contact with Alan's mate, who was selling this drum kit. He contacted me and he's like, "Hey mate, listen." He's like, I know you've met Alan before. You've gotten a few things off of him before. He's like, but he's gotten rid of another drum kit. Do you think you'd be interested in it? And I was like, say no more. I was like, say no more. And that's how that happened.
Honey, I'm selling a kidney.
hmm
I've got to
I've
buy a
got
drum
one.
kit.
I've got one left, so please, nobody offer me any more drum kits.
Oh goodness. That's the question is though, Brian. How do you afford it? How do you afford to keep the collection going like this?
Well, sometimes I don't really ever sell anything unless it's something that I need to buy it today, or that person needs the money right away. Then I'll try to sell something. But
Mhm.
usually it's through maybe trades. Very
Mhm.
seldom trades, but luckily enough, I'm fortunate enough to be able to save a little bit while I provide for my family. And
Mhm.
you know what? Before this, it's funny you asked me that. Actually, I have a specific answer for that. I used to collect watches. I had about 400, probably about 350 watches. Some G-Shocks. I used to be heavily collector in G-Shocks, and I started selling off my G-Shock collection. And
Oh, okay.
you'd be surprised at like the prices that some of these G-Shocks would sell for. So if anybody's collecting G-Shocks, I've got some for sale.
Do it, and then you not only are you going to get a great watch, but you're also going to help the
A
world's
cause.
greatest Oasis collector to increase the world's greatest Oasis collection.
There you go.
Which is what we need to do. And so, I mean, that's kind of undisputed, right? You are the world's greatest Oasis collector.
Well, I would never say that myself. I'll let other people say that, because I think that when you let other people say it, then it's pretty certain. I'll never say that, but I've heard that before, and it's something that I think is still, even to this day, hard for me to accept, because I'm just a regular guy,
Yeah, as I say, because you are just a regular guy. It's not like it's kind of. I mean, I suppose maybe, I don't know if like Peggy Gallagher has got I know she collects all the clippings, doesn't she?
Right.
She still collects folders
yeah.
and folders and folders of all press about them, but which would be a great sort of thing for the archive. But yeah, just in terms of memorabilia and just stuff. I mean, yeah, as I say, there's no one else I'm aware of that you're the name that comes up online and things that you are the guy. So yeah, I mean, any particular as I say, I put it out there on Twitter, and thanks everyone so much that have sent questions in for Brian. It's actually been one of the best most responses, and there's so much love for you out there. All these responses of like, oh, tell Brian he's a legend, tell him he's a top man, all this sort of stuff. There's so much love for you out there, Brian. It's you are well respected and loved in the community of Oasis fans.
Well, thank you, and the love is mutual for everyone out there. It really is, because that's what Oasis is. Oasis is the music, is the fans. And whether I had my collection or not, man, it would still be the same at a gig. I'd wrap my arm around the next person and we'd have it.
Exactly. And so, I mean, the big one that's come up, obvious question, but have you got a favourite piece in the collection?
Ooh, you know what? I have thought about this, and each piece is special for different reasons. Maybe it's a value, but a lot of the times it's maybe the way you acquired it, who you acquired it from, how it came to be. But I'd say for different reasons, we'll go through each one of them. I guess for maybe the shock value of it all, my most, prized, you would say, would be Noel's Flying V from the Do You Know What I Mean music video. And it's, I mean, you see it, and it's just like, you don't have to say anything. You see it, and it's like, it's the guitar, the song. It brings back all the memories. You see the video. You can picture the video footage in your head.
Yes.
So shock value and visual. I would say probably the Flying V. It's got a beautiful guitar case that has been built for it, which I didn't do. But
built for it.
Yeah,
wow,
it's like a guitar coffin or something.
Yeah.
It's pretty elaborate. It's pretty elaborate, but it's great. And but as well, I'd probably say sentimental. Probably the way I got the drum snares from Alan White. These were used at Nebworth. So I've got his mahogany gold hardware on it drum snare from Nebworth. You can also see it being played on other live gigs, but Nebworth is most notable. Wow. So that one's special because actually I met Alan, shook his hand, we hung out. I asked him, how are you doing? I was like, what are you doing now? And he was like, oh, I'm just enjoying life, hanging with my kids. We talked about his kids and just life, and it was great. So I think that one was probably the most sentimental value-wise, I guess, because of the way I got it.
The memory.
It's a memory, exactly.
When would that have been, Brian? When did you meet Alan?
In 2017. I probably want to say about 2.5 years ago. So it was end of 14, okay. I believe. I think it was January 15. January 15th, something like that. Yeah.
Because it's funny. It's sort of, the ex-Oasis members kind of just, other than like Tony McCarroll's still out there, but Gwiggs and Boner's still out there, but Gwiggs has disappeared.
Yeah,
Alan White's disappeared. Like, what is going on? Are these people in the bottom of the lake or something?
Yeah,
I don't know.
The last I heard, Gwiggs was living somewhere near one of my mates, Ilham, when he was living in London, supposedly he lived near him, and he was like, "Hey, keep an eye out for Gwiggs. He may be on the tube." But yeah, Alan, I guess he doesn't want to. I guess you go through epics in your life, and you go through want to be recognized, and you kind of fade away. You just want to enjoy your life, and I can respect that from all the band members who want to be recognized and don't, and so I think that's what it is with some of them. I'm not sure.
Well, I just wonder if kind of, if Alan, the likes of Alan, has just like made enough money from the band, put some money away, maybe into property or something like that, and then just sort of fine, you can just completely, doesn't need to go and get another a day job kind of thing.
Yeah,
you
can
sort of
live off
invest the money he's made and done well.
Live off of passive income. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
which maybe he has done that, but yeah, it was great, man. He was just so. He was just a guy's guy. He was just a lad, He was just one of the guys, and talking to him, he was just like, yeah. He was very relaxed. Great guy.
Oh, good stuff. And so let's have a talk through you meeting the other guys then. So you met Alan that time. Who else have you met?
Well, I met Liam at the Chasing the Sun exhibition at opening press night. Mm-hmm. So it was obviously when all the press was there, it was only by invite only guest list, and thanks to Brian, I got in.
Who are you, sir, and where are we?
My name's Lawrence Watson, photographer, now curator, and we're in Shoreditch at a new exhibition on Oasis's first 4 years of existence.
Well, because there's lots of stuff that hasn't been seen anywhere, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what we tried to do, was find pictures that hadn't been seen, which was hard because it is 20 years, so lots of the photographers' archives had been dipped into for magazines and books. Put Noel with Paul because they've got such a great sort of friendship, and just the Jam were one of the strong influence, and the Pistols to the Jam to the Smiths. I just like the fact that
that Weller's in it.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. What's your name and what do you do?
I'm Brian Cannon, and I designed and art directed the cover for Definitely Maybe.
Which is what we're sitting inside now. We're sitting inside a nearly full-size reproduction of Bonehead's front room.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really accurate, actually, yeah.
What do you remember from that day?
It was very laid back. We'd gone along a couple of weeks beforehand and done test shots in the room. So nothing was left to chance. It's not as fly on the wall as it looks. It's very staged. It's almost like an anti-band shot insofar as the band are in the shot, but they're oblivious to the camera being there. It's like we're watching the telly.
And you can't even see the band that well. You can't even see all of them individually. So in terms of like this is what we look like shot, it doesn't even work in that way. But I guess it's not supposed to.
No, it wasn't. It was just the vibe to it, really. It's got iconic stamped all over it, and I don't just mean from the visual point of view. Everything, the whole Oasis gig, it's just iconic. It's brilliant.
There's some incredible shots here, incredible live photos. Are there any that chime with specific memories for you?
I like the old stuff, the very old stuff, like in the dressing room in Derby, for example, where it's crackers, isn't it? Because nobody's got mobile phones, everybody's just sort of...
That's true, they're just there...
picking labels off the beer bottles.
Yes. That was entertainment in them days. We just picked a label off a beer bottle.
And then you've got the opposite end. I mean, if you think about it, that shot there at Main Road, that was only 95, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's 18 months later from nobody having heard them to selling out stadiums. It really is quite a remarkable story, isn't it?
My girlfriend at the time, which is my wife now, Fernanda, we were sitting there, we're like, oh my God, look at these people, look at this, look at that, and we're staring at all the artifacts on the wall, we're having beers, and then all of a sudden you just see a mob, literally. It looked like a swarm of bees coming through the exhibition. In the middle of that swarm was Liam Gallagher and Paul. And my wife pinched me, and she's like, oh my God, look. And I was like, oh my God, it's Liam. So I go up to Liam, I'm like, hey, and it's hard to talk to him because everybody wants to shake his hand. Everybody wants to be like, hey, Liam, And so that was the first time I met Liam. He's a great guy. As everybody would probably tell you, he was just great. It was just great to be in that moment, in that time, and it was surreal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like we've said in another episode, but it seems like everyone that meets him, especially if there isn't press around,
right.
If there's press around, it's kind of like he'll play up to the cameras and he'll, to try and do something to get in the papers. But when it's just, like, I've had friends have met him, and he'll have a beer with you. He's just a sound bloke. I think he's in sort of a good place in his life now, and he's just happy to talk and have a beer, which is just great. What a great guy.
Yeah.
And yet since from being kind of 21 years old, his life has just been madness.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine that. Rock and roll never sleeps, and I don't think you would too if all that was going on around you. So I couldn't imagine what it would be like. But I think he does realize it's like, take it in now because you only live once.
Yeah, and I suppose it's like you've got that thing of he must know that when someone meets him, it's a huge moment for them.
Right.
So that's it. He's got the opportunity in that moment to have a positive impact on that person's life, hasn't he? And because that will be forever. Like like I'm doing on here, people have got like, oh, that was the moment I met Liam, and and you've got the chance to be an absolute legend and make that person's life, or kind of be a bit of a knobhead and sort of and spoil it.
Yeah.
So,
good.
Good.
They say never meet your heroes, but Liam was definitely one to meet. So I don't think he'd ever disappoint. Never has.
And what about his brother?
His brother Noel. He's you know what? I've had a lot of obviously when he's at a gig, it's madness. So it's been a very neutral experience there. But I've been lucky enough to meet Noel and Sarah, and I've talked to Noel backstage privately and stuff like that. And he's just a great guy. It really is. I don't know, something about him just being one-on-one. Maybe it's it's just different. It was very nice. He shook hands with my wife and we laughed. I showed him a demo tape and he's like, "Oh, where'd you get this from?" I told him, and he's like, "Oh," he's like, "I haven't seen this tape in forever." He goes, Bonehead wrote that song, Bonehead and Liam, and I was like, "Oh yeah." And so we chatted a little bit and took a picture and said our hellos and goodbyes, and it was just great. He was a great guy. It was really fun.
And what do they think about this guy, Mexican guy from West Texas, being so into a band from Manchester? I mean, have they ever commented on that to you? Like, what you doing?
No, I don't think. No, Noel's never told me anything. I think he may know, but he's never told me anything directly. Okay. But it'd be great if you're listening.
Yeah, Noel's a big subscriber. I'm just a bit busy right now with all the other interviews we've got coming up. I'll try and fit him in at some point, maybe in the autumn. I don't know, but actually, it's a funny one. Matt Whitecross, I've sort of mentioned a couple of times that we've sort of had some messages back and forth.
Right.
And I was sort of trying to get hold of him, and he sort of gone a bit quiet last week. And he just sent me a message today saying, "Oh, I'm free tonight if you want to just do a recording." And I said, "Sorry, Matt, I've got Brian Garcia coming on."
So
Brian,
goodness,
you're officially more important than the director of Supersonic.
Supersonic, right?
So there you go.
Yeah, Matt's a great guy too. He's fantastic. He's got.
So were you guys? You were thanked in Supersonic in the in the credits, right?
Yeah, it was great. I contributed several handwritten lyrics, some recordings, some unseen pictures of that hadn't been seen during the Nolan Spiral days, of Clint Boone and Noel. Now, I don't know if they used my specific recordings that I sent them, but there were some of them. But those are some of the things that I submitted to them. So that was a very good feeling to see my name on the big screen. It's like the ultimate honor as a fan. There's nothing that can beat being publicly recognized by the band that changed your life, and as well as like the Be Here Now album in the deluxe edition. I was fortunate enough to get all my handwritten lyrics featured in the coffee table book, and I have my own Oasis postcard that says Brian Garcia Oasis Collection on it, which is pretty incredible. So yeah,
that's pretty cool. But no, that's it. What a great resource you've been to those guys, because it's. I know that on the Live Forever forums, that's the just in the research for this podcasts. I mean, I would sort of drop in and just sort of check those every now and then. I was never an active member, and yet, you know, sort of doing the research for this show and sort of dropping in, it's like I'm going back to kind of all these points where researchers from the movie were coming on and just sort of saying, look, can you guys help us out? And it was so good to have that forum of these people that are just like, yeah, I've got this, I've got Select magazine, you know, 1996, bang, I can get you it, and you know, such a great resource that's out there.
Yeah, there's some great people out there with some resources. Live Forever forums, everybody on there is incredible. You know, we may have our disagreements or whatnot, but everybody's super supportive. Joachim from Oasis Archive, he is probably the number one Oasis curator of because he archives everything. He saves everything. He's almost like a historian of Oasis. He's a really great guy too. Great collector, great friend.
Okay.
Yeah, he's very cool guy.
Good. No, well, that's. I mean, it's been a great resource for me as well. I mean, and the plan is to start, you know, tracking people down. You've seen online that, you know, Tony McCarroll's actually had a couple of messages back and forth with me, and so
Tony's
I kind of was. Guy. So you've met Tony as well, yeah?
I haven't met him. We've talked a few times, but he's just a super guy, great down to earth guy, and. Hopefully we'll get to meet. We were planning on meeting last time I was in Manchester, but schedules just didn't jive. So.
Okay, but yeah. So I mean, that would be a coup, obviously. I mean, the you know, for the podcast, the first one was getting Mark Feltham on, which was like straight away we've got
the harmonica player, yeah.
Yeah, so straight away, you know, to have someone who has physically, because I didn't know what this was going to be. I thought this was just going to be me talking to my mates, and that was it. And then straight away I thought, well, I'll ping out a couple of kind of requests to, you know, the names that I'd always thought, they were important. You know, so Mark Feltham was one of them. I'd always loved his harmonica playing on, you know, especially on that on the master plan and on that Nebworth recording. And it's just one of those, who is that guy? Right, Mark Feltham. Log that one. I'll remember that for the future. And and then he just came back straight away and said, "Yep, I'll come on." So, great, all right,
brilliant.
Because at that point it had only been. Obviously me rambling to myself in the first couple of episodes, and then my, you know, the first one we did the interview with Casey. So it was so cool. And then straight away that gives me the calling card then to go to Brian Cannon and say, well, Brian, I got Mark Feltham on last week, so you know. And then Brian came on, which is great. And then so once again, there's an even better calling card. So it's sort of a snowball, but yeah, if we get Tony Mack, and I might have to hit you up for your address book, mate, because you've got some good names in there.
Anytime, man. I'd be willing to help.
Okay. And well, if you're willing to help, then how about some of these unreleased demo tapes that you've got? I think an Oasis podcast exclusive might just be perfect fit for those.
You know, there's some interesting recordings that I have. I was actually thinking about that before I came on. I was looking at some tapes. There was one. It was a demo tape. I need to go back and look at that and listen to the recording again. I ripped it, but you know what? I don't know where I've put it or saved it, but I need to go back and take a look at it. It was it's a version of Don't Go Away. It's called Need More Time on this early 92, 93 demo tape I have.
No.
It's got like Strange Thing, Bring It On Down, Digsy's Dinner, whatever. It's got some great versions that I've never heard before, so I'd like to get those and re-listen to him, actually, because I remember ripping him a few years ago and never listening to him again because, you know, life happens and you forget about stuff and you get old.
But what's the process though? So once you get hold of a demo tape through just buying it, through finding someone that's got it and buying it. But then if you did want to, because I've seen that you've put a couple of bits out. I mean, do you have to contact like Sony or you know, someone to say, am I allowed to do this, or is it like, well, look, it's my property, I can do what I want with it?
Well, you know, I've never released anything that I've been asked not to release. I remember I had, for 2 years before the Mystique demos came out, I had the Mystique demos. I had the full sessions of the Mystique demos. I never released those to anyone because I promised I'd never release them. And I remember it all the way up until a week before the Mystique demos were released. People were like, "Oh, the leak is imminent. And that's really probably the only, I think, demo sessions that hasn't been leaked. which I'm actually very proud of being trusted with those and not having them out in the public. But all the other demo tapes, you know what? I don't think I've never asked. I may be getting in trouble now, but I don't think I've ever shared anything on those demo tapes publicly that hasn't been already out there.
Yeah, I think there is so much stuff out there, isn't there? That and I don't think these days there's as much of sort of with Spotify and things like that. I know they put out these deluxe editions where they charge a lot of money for them, but most people are happy to kind of have it out to publicize the band, and stuff doesn't tend to get when we were talking about Oasis Live, so we were talking about Oasis Beatles versions, and there's so many like Oasis, like sound checks they did at where they played Strawberry Fields, or sound check where I think there's a sound check where Noel plays Eleanor Rigby,
right?
And that's just up on YouTube, and there's no one's physically going and taking these things all down.
Right.
I think there is just that bit more of acceptance of, look, fine, if people want to get that stuff out there, then that's good. But well, anyway, look, it's over to you, mate. Obviously, it'd be fantastic. Just for the ability to hear it. I mean, that's in the episode with Brian Cannon when he mentioned about this. This cassette tape. Did you start salivating when you heard that?
I was in shock. I remember I was sitting on his couch and he played it on his stereo system. We sat there. It was just me and Brian. That was it. It was just me and him. We were sat in front on his couch, facing his speaker. He turned it on. I think the most incredible thing about that tape is you can hear Owen speaking to Noel. You can hear Noel saying back, oh no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. Wow. They're chatting between sessions, and all of a sudden you just hear Noel start strumming on an acoustic, and then he leads into Wonderwall. 3 or 4 different versions of Wonderwall takes. Then there's that Unheard song on there, which is absolutely incredible. It was very nice of him to allow me to hear that, and so that was a highlight of one of my Oasis highlights that I'll always remember.
But did you remember the song though? Do you remember the chord sequence and the melody? That could be it. That could be your big hit single.
I've completely forgot. I was in complete shock. I don't remember a thing.
That's a pain, isn't it? When you can't remember it. Yeah, oh dear.
Yeah, I remember thinking at the time, I was like, oh, don't forget what it's like to listen to this tape. Look how amazing it is, and it was just great. But yeah, that was incredible.
Great. Shall we get on to some of the questions that came over on Twitter then? Because,
absolutely, I look forward to that.
That was great. So we had Jazz, which is Beth_Supernova.
Hey, Jazz. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know Jazz?
I do know Jazz. She's a great girl.
Okay, a couple of questions then. What's your top 5 of Oasis B-sides? First one.
All right.
It's a bit hard to just pull that out, but go on. Top 5 Oasis B-sides.
Oh, top 5. Obviously, Idler's Dream. You've got the heart.
Dream?
Yeah, I love that.
That's interesting. Okay.
I love Idler's Dream. Let's All Make Believe. I love that song. Just the sheer the lyrics of it. It's so powerful. I'm trying to think. Sitting Here in Silence of My Own, Carry Us All. Oh, Take Me Away. Take Me Away was the one that I fell in love with, and obviously the Master Plan has to be, favorite B-side. I know I'm gonna log off and be like, oh my God, why didn't I say, do you want to be a spaceman? Or...
Yeah, it's interesting. You're always going for a lot of the acoustic ones there. Is that really what you gravitate towards with Oasis then?
It is. It's a good catch on that. Something about there's something that magical happens like when Noel picks up a guitar and it's just his voice and maybe a drum loop and a guitar. It's out of this world. I think that is the reason that I became a massive Oasis fan, is because of just how magical that is to listen to. I know a lot of people are like, oh well, he doesn't have the voice and how annoying his voice is, or I've heard all sorts of things, but that's just me. That's that's unbeatable when you have Noel, an acoustic, and a song like a song like Master Plan. It just doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, I mean, do you prefer Noel as a singer to Liam then?
No, I mean, yes and no. It's like there's certain songs that Noel I think does really really well. Obviously, Don't Look Back in Anger. Although I've never heard Liam sing it.
Yeah, there's a holy grail that exists somewhere, doesn't it?
Supposedly, yeah. I think I don't know who has it or where it exists, but if it does, it'd be something I'd really love to hear. But obviously, I Am the Walrus couldn't be sung the same way it was by Liam at Chicago Metro. It's just that version was just blistering. But like early Liam vocals is just he was really untouchable. So I'd have to go with Liam on vocals.
Good. And then the other thing Jazz said was, what do you think about Noel's collaboration with Damon Albarn?
Oh, yeah, it's very 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 neutral. I love everything that almost Noel does, but maybe I'm just getting old, and maybe that's for the kids, and I'm getting grumpy.
Yeah.
But it was. I listened to it, and it was all right. It was all right. It was forgettable for me.
I think like I mentioned on the episode, and I played. If people listened to the very very end of the episode, you would have heard the little snippet of that video that they did, that Gorillaz released of Noel and Damon just in the studio, and he's just playing it on a guitar, and it's only 14 seconds long, but I think that is more interesting than the actual song itself. And I loved, it's similar to Setting Sun, the Coming On Strong.
Right.
It's when you hear Noel play that acoustically, I think it's such a great song, and I think that there's enough of a melody in that song that it would have been. I'd just be interested to hear what the origins of it, or like hearing the session of how that came together with Noel and Damon before it was then turned over and changed around.
Yeah, produced and had vocals and all the other extra vocals in there. I think maybe that's what it was, but I wish I would have heard that snippet. Now I'll have to go back and listen to the end of it completely.
You got to listen to the end, man.
I got to the questions and I was like, oh my gosh, and I was like, so I turned it off. But I have to listen to the very very end of that.
There you go. And we've got Mark Andrew Shaw says, have you ever been asked for an autograph?
I have, as a matter of fact. I signed his name's Bully Mark Shaw. That's who that asked that question. I signed that, and I've signed his album, the Be Here Now album. He saw me at the exhibition, and he was like, Brian Garcia, and I was like, and you know what? That is one of the greatest feelings, to be recognized just by your name. People from across the globe say your name, and they tell you like they know they know who you are, they've known you all their lives. And he's like, Brian Garcia, how are you doing? And one of the greatest guys. He ripped open his album. He took the cellophane off, and he opened it up, and I was like, what is he doing? And he's like, I want you to sign my album. And I was like, wow. It was one of the most unforgettable things that I've ever done. And I also got recognized in a hotel. So first of all, shout out to Mark Shaw, top man, signed his Be Here Now album, and got recognized in a hotel in Ohio. I was checking into a hotel late at night. Mm-hmm. I'd pulled in. I was going to a Noel Gallagher High Flying Bird gig. So I was staying in my hotel. I was given the guy at the reception desk, my details, giving him my confirmation number and everything, and I just hear somebody behind me go, Brian Garcia, and I was like, whoa. So I turned around. It was this young kid named Jimmy Kuhn. So if you're listening, Jimmy, how are you? And he's like, Brian Garcia. I was like, how did you recognize me? He's like, I see all your YouTube videos.
Oh, wow.
I was like, wow, man. I was like, this is what it feels like. This is incredible. So, and then I met his mom, and I met his mom and dad, and they came in, and we're like Facebook friends now, and it's a great feeling, man. So everybody's just,
good.
It's greater than anything I could have ever imagined, being a 14-year-old Oasis fan. So it's it's incredible.
Jamie E. Bond, on Twitter says, "How do Americans get Oasis?"
They, I think we kind of covered this earlier, but I think the extent, because I've got Oasis license plates, and
have you?
Yeah,
what does it say?
It says OA51S. So when you read it, it says Oasis, and
you know who's got that license plate in the UK?
Bone.
Bonehead.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool, and people don't get it. They're like, Oasis. It's like I had one guy tell me, "Oh, you must live a really great life if it's an Oasis," and I was like, "Oh, no, it's a band. It's a band." And he's like, I didn't know what it was, and I was like, "Yeah, it's a band." And I was like, "You've never heard of?"
He said, "Oh, that's the band that did Wonderwall and the Brothers Fighting."
That's what I get a lot, and they're like, "What other song do they?" And I'm like, "Champagne Supernova," and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know that song."
Yeah, he spat at the MTV Awards, and we didn't like him after that.
yeah, and nobody understands. I'm like, man, you don't know the biggest British rock band, in
since
history.
The Beatles.
Yeah, since the Beatles.
Yeah.
And they're like, nah, and I'm like, that's what I
Get
have
out.
to. That's what I. Yeah, exactly. Get out of my restaurant. I tell my.
Do you play a lot of Oasis in the restaurant?
You know what? We have. We don't, because we have most of the TVs going and things like that. But in the kitchen when I'm cooking, it's Oasis all day, every day, and everybody knows that. When I come in with my speaker, they know.
They know it's time for Oasis.
Yeah. If you don't like it, go to your car, listen to What's the Story, Morning Glory, and definitely maybe twice, and then you can come back in.
Good. Noel Gallagher Wears at Noel Wears, top man. He says, "Who's got the better clothes, Noel or Liam?"
Easy, Liam. Liam, and it's funny because you say that, because my wife adores Liam's style. She's into leopard print, and she's like, "Oh my God, did you see the pretty green thing that he was wearing and whatnot?" And I was like, "Yeah, he's the only one who can pull off a green parka and shades."
Yeah, that guy can do it.
Yeah,
he really can. It's sickening, really. But there you go. Oasis, the tribute band Oasis, OAS-IS tribute at Oasis. Here we go, at OAS_IS_official, who are a great Oasis tribute band, and we've been in touch. We might do something. He's just said the man's a legend. So there you go. You're getting some love there, man.
Thank you very much, guys. You guys, you guys.
Are they?
Go ahead.
They tour with Phil Smith.
Oh, do they? Do they do the? They must do the. I guess the Oasis Mania nights, I believe, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who does that, but yeah, guys, thank you very much. Shout out to you guys too. Anybody who's listening, follow them. Yeah,
and we've got Grandpa Batman, who, and he says, when is your museum opening?
That would be, if anybody at Ignition or anything is listening, I'd love to feature all my items in one spot, one space, whether it's temporary or permanent, so we can get everything directly into the hands of fans, whether it be lyrics, studio music things. I've got amps, I've got guitars, I've got drum kits, I've got loads of handwritten lyrics, I've got live demonstration tapes, all sorts of things that I think people would really love to see, because it brings them in touch. It's like looking at the the U.S. Constitution or something. You go and you see it and you don't believe it. You know it exists, but when you see it, it's completely different. And I'd like to bring that same feeling that I have when I see when I see the things that I've been fortunate enough to collect over the years. Bring that and take that to the people. I actually have a couple of things in some exhibits right now. If at the British Music Experience, I've got a set of "Don't Look Back" in Anger lyrics. They're right next to Noel's Union Jack, and thanks to Chris at George Henry Guitars, he had contacted me and asked me if I wanted to put something in that exhibition. He also restores and is the only one who can restore and refinish a guitar to the exact specs of Noel's Main Road Union Jack, because he's the one who curates and takes care and looks after Noel's Union Jack. So if anything happens to that Union Jack, so George Henry, Chris at George Henry Guitars. He's actually refinishing a guitar for me right now, which should be done soon. So I'm really excited for that. And so it's made to the exact specifications as Noel's Union Jack. But I have that. I've put some things on exhibition in other spaces too, and I just really like to bring that to the people. So hopefully that is the ultimate plan with this collection, would be to find a venue and bring it to people. And I don't mind traveling. I don't mind putting a little bit of my part into it to help out, whether it be physically, with muscle, or a little bit of financially. So I'd really like to bring this to everybody. So hopefully one day that'll happen.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's great. And so I'm just having a look at some of the other questions, but I think it's kind of stuff that we've answered already, like what's your most prized possession? Neil Stridine came back and said that. I think you sort of mentioned it's the Flying V.
Yeah, the Flying V. Yeah, there's some other notable ones that I'd really like to mention, like the live demonstration tape. That, I guess, historically is very important to the story, because that is what was like the catalyst, or whatever you'd like to call it, that took Oasis. It was like their magic carpet into world stardom. Some other notable pieces are the original handwritten lyrics that Noel wrote for Some Might Say. He wrote these lyrics out, and he gave them to Brian Cannon at Microdot when he was designing the sleeve. So Brian Cannon used those lyrics. He read those lyrics and made the sleeve off of those lyrics, because Noel said, you know what? Everything that are in these lyrics, I want it put into an album sleeve. So Brian had to think of a sink full of fishes. He had to think of Standing at the Station. He had to think of everything like that, and that's where you get the Some Might Say. And I'm fortunate enough to have those.
What else we got? Okay, VW Campervan asks, has he ever been in a VW campervan?
You know what? I actually met that guy. I was picking up the tape deck, that's featured in the album sleeve of Shaker Maker. I went to go. I have that, and I went to go pick it up in the UK. And when I was picking it up, I was staying with Brian. So I'm going through the tube in London. I have it in a little zip-up suitcase that has wheels on it. So I'm wheeling this tape deck through London up in the tube. So I go up to Wigan, go up into the lake, stay with Brian, and Brian's like, hop into this camper van. He goes, this is incredible. And so we take a trip to go pick up this camper van, and all the meantime I've got my luggage and this Shaker Maker tape deck in the back. We meet the guy who is letting us borrow this camper van, which is absolutely incredible. It had no power steering, no heater, but it had a full kitchen in the back, a full kitchen and a bed in the back. So we picked that up, and we met him, and we told him, like, here's the Shaker Maker tape deck, and he was impressed, as I was, just to see the tape deck. And,
wow.
So yeah,
I saw that. I just assumed it was just like a random kind of someone trying to promote VW campervans, just jumping on tweets. But, oh no, okay,
no, yeah. He's actually, I've actually met him, been to his house, and he's a great guy. So we picked up the camper van from him, and Brian and I went back to his house in that camper van, and we had a great time in that camper van. It was so much fun. I actually have videos of us, Brian called. Brian called. He's like, we're gonna nickname this Adolf because it's the German death machine. He goes, because it had no power steering, it had no heater. So Brian is getting a shoulder workout driving 2 hours back to the lakes, while we're both freezing inside the camper van talking about Oasis stories. It was the greatest time, man. It was so fun.
Fantastic. I love that. Golf Addict on Twitter just came up with, once again, the same thing. What's the favourite piece in your collection? Neil Stridine also said, no question, but he is a top man, without doubt, part of the Oasis story.
Well, thank you,
Looking
Neil.
forward to hearing the podcast.
Thank you, Neil.
So you seem to know all of these people. Are you paying them? Did you actually pay all these people to ask to big you up on this?
No, I was.
Come on, tell the truth.
No, it's like I was saying. It's the Oasis collecting and Oasis music has really put me in contact with just great friends. great people. I've met them maybe once or twice, but that's all it takes just for me to, really to appreciate you and, take you in, and we'll forever be friends. Like, there's people I've met maybe once or twice, and I still consider them some of my greatest friends, like Micaela and Yuri from Rome. Still to this day, one of my greatest friends. So shout out to you guys too.
Well done. What's the story 3, which is the guys we're putting on the Saturday 17th of June in Northampton? Is there a holy grail or something you don't have that's top of your wants list?
Everything I don't.
And what would you do for it?
Everything I don't own is at the top of my want list. But no. Yeah. But serious reply to that. I think the holy grail, and I missed out on this, unfortunately. I was in contact with the guy, and I'd slept on it for too long. I went like 6 months without contacting him again, but I was offered the acoustic guitar, the Takamine from MTV Unplugged. And now in hindsight, I look at that and I was like, I should have taken it. I should have gotten it when I had the chance. But I was like, oh, you know what? Not right now. It's not the right time. Just let me wait. Let me save up a little bit more money. And but looking back at it now, I should have just taken it. And lesson learned on that. But so yeah, that is a holy grail. And I'm trying to think. If any one of Noel's stage used guitars is probably always one of my holy grails. I think that that's always one of the most that and Godlike Genius Award maybe.
Oh wow, that'd be good. Because you've got a Brat Award, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got 2 Brat Awards actually. I've got the one for Wonderwall Best Single 95-96, and the one they won for Best Band 95-96. Those are actually very, very, I love those pieces because it's like a conversation piece. You see it in the middle of the living room, people walk in, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? And then you show them the picture of Noel holding it, and they're like, oh my god, and it's fun. Those 2 pieces are a lot of fun to own. They're great.
Yeah.
And again, no nominations, just one winner, and that winner is all the way again from Manchester, Oasis! Oh yeah, here we go, fella. Here we go. Clear your way.
I'm going to let him say it first.
Not nobody else is saying this, yes.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? The best new album, I'd like to say, Tim Abbott, Alan McGee, Marcus Russell, Brian Cannon, Chris Abbott, Johnny Hopkins, and I'd like to say that I hope that Menswear win it next year, the best dressed British band in rock music.
That is wonderful, mate. Well, I'll tell you what, there's other questions as well, but we could talk all night, but I'll let you. I think we'll sort of start to wrap it up, and just hope that everything has recorded. Otherwise, you'll be crying. But man, we'll speak again and we'll do this again because I know that there's going to be so much other stuff to cover. I mean, the one thing I was just going to cover as well, just briefly, if you wanted to sort of talk about your music. I mean, as I say, I wasn't even aware of it really until sort of tracking you down on YouTube. But making music is something that's obviously important to you, a big part of your life.
Yeah, it'll always be important to my life. And I actually tried to pick up piano while I was going to college, but that seemed to not work out because you have to focus on studying and not piano lessons. But I tried picking up piano. It didn't take off. But I'll always love to play. I don't think as time goes on, the less and less time I have to play. I have no time to play. Like most of my time is all of my time is working. And as you know, with kids, it's like you want to spend every moment with them because the youth is fleeting, especially when they're babies. So you want to spend every time you can with them. You read to them and whatnot. So right now, that's on the back burner. But I'll always love playing, and hopefully teach baby Oasis to play guitar and piano. So
good. And if you have another child, is it BDI or High Flying Bird?
No, we were actually thinking of if it's a girl, probably call her Lyric or something. But
Lyric.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I was telling my wife, I was like, if it's a boy, his middle name is going to be Cannon. And
Cannon.
So,
oh, that's lovely. That's lovely.
So I was like, that's a strong name, Cannon.
Yeah.
You know, so
I like
so middle name Cannon, and she's like, we'll talk about it. So.
Well, that is a lovely tribute to Brian.
Yeah,
I'm
fantastic.
assuming it is for Brian, and not just for the weapon of war.
The demolition weapon, yeah.
Take it's either that or AK-47. I wasn't sure which way to go.
Right.
So.
No, but yeah, it is for Brian. So hopefully, if we're blessed enough to have another child, that those will be the names. So. Yeah.
There you go. Well, that's fantastic. Good. Is there anything else you wanted to sort of mention or promote while we're here?
Just about the museum. I'd really like to get something going, whether it be an Oasis specific museum or any other venue of that type. Like if anybody wants to feature any of my items out there, I'm willing to do it, given that it's within reason. And obviously we can talk out the details, but I'd love to do something like that. I'm always willing to collaborate with either other photographers, Microdot, Brian Cannon, Lawrence Watson, which is he's actually a really good friend of mine. So if Lawrence ever wants to do anything, I'd love to do that. Whether it be, documentaries, books, or whatever, I'd love to put anything like that together.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's actually, I might not leave this part in, but I was speaking yesterday actually to this guy, Dr. Ken Womack, who's a Beatles scholar, and he's written various books on the Beatles, including the Beatles Encyclopedia, which is a really important, well-respected book on the Beatles. And he's got a book about George Martin coming out this year, and he was, and we're just talking away and talking about the Beatles and about Oasis, and I was explaining, like I was saying earlier, about how I just felt like this story needs to be told, and the fact that there isn't a book about Oasis, about the entirety of their career. There's loads that came out, the Paolo Hewitt one, and the Tony McCarroll's book and Chris Hutton's book, but nothing that does that. There's no Oasis encyclopedia. There's no tome that tells the whole story of Oasis.
Yeah, and I think go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and so I was saying this to Ken, and he said, "Well, write it then."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, but no," and he sort of caught me completely off guard because, I hadn't, as I say, I'm, I can physically type and I can write. My job, I write reports and things, but I'm not a writer of books. But I mean, maybe something that could be done is just even collating what we've got in these interviews. Like there's the book called Mods. I'm just trying to look on my shelf now to see what the name of the guy who wrote it is. I can't see, but Terry Barnes, I think. And it's like, and it's an audio, so it's like it's a book, but it's just a series of interviews of people talking about, in 1961 I got this Lambretta from this dealership or whatever, and it's sort of, so it's other than a foreword by I think Pete Townsend, it's not, written out like a book. It is just a collection of sort of the interviews,
right? Collection of stories, right?
Yeah, and I mean, even if we did something like that, once we've got a good, and let's say what I like about this is it's not just, I'm not just trying to get Brian Cannon, Tony McCarroll, Matt Whitecross. We're not just getting the people that were important and were there. It's like everyone, from the American guys that were like, yeah, I liked them, they were never that big to me, but I liked a few songs, because that's valid. That's a valid kind of, that was the experience of being there and hearing this band and understanding the world in which and how they affected people in the world. So yeah.
That's
but
exactly
no, I
right.
like a book like that, collating everything we're doing. I think it would be something to consider. I think
I agree, and especially like I was going to say, like you brought up something really good, like a very comprehensive, either whether it's storytelling or with pictures, because I was thinking, like I have the earliest probably items to the very last Oasis item ever signed. It was signed to the Rockin' Paris, or the Rockin' sign, and it was the very last Oasis item that was ever fully signed, and that would be like a beautiful, like just an ending to it all.
Last page.
Yeah. So I was thinking about it. It'd be great.
Shivers down my spine, Brian.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Okay. No, but I think I don't know. I might completely edit all this part out because I don't want to just people think, hold on a minute, is this guy just done this whole podcast thing just to try and
right,
get publicity to do a book? But because I don't know, I'm just like a guy with, like, same as you, I'm just like a guy with kids and just thought, I love podcasts, I'll do one, and now it's like I've got a bloody Beatles scholar who's published books and I'm saying, yeah, you need to write a book. I'm like, what?
I know, I've been put on the spot like that too. I'm like, oh yeah, it would be great to do this and this, and like, oh, why don't you do it? I'm just like, huh? And just like, oh, here I am.
I've got children. I run restaurants.
It's I wish it was like 2 or 3 of me, then we could get things done. But it's always something I'd love to do.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, I thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, James, and
today,
thank you
Brian.
for contacting me and considering me. It's like this is a great honor, just as it is to be part of anything Oasis. So whenever my name comes up, I'm always very touched by that. And just to know that people know who I am is incredible, because, like I told you, being the 14-year-old Oasis fan, I thought the highlight was owning every album. But every day gets better and better, so it's great.
Yeah, no, good. And so you're still going to collect? There's no plans to stop?
Yeah,
I'm going to keep going.
Much to my wife's disappointment, I think I don't see any sign of slowing down. Although the items are becoming a little more expensive as I get deeper into it.
Yeah. Well, are you focusing more on just single ticket big items versus lots of little things?
I am, because there's only so much money that I can spend, or so many items I can trade, that I have to either focus on many small ones or a couple of large ones. So, but it's it always depends on the item. I always say, if I get this item, I'll be done collecting, and then that item lands in my collection, and it never ends. There's always something else.
No. Well, what you're doing is brilliant, man. It's just, as I say, I mean, even if you're not one of our you're not English, but you are a national treasure. Because what you're doing is collating all this stuff. It's there, and and the fact you put it out there, it's on social media. So anyone listening, if you're not following at Oasis DNA across the internet, I think you're big on Instagram, aren't you? That's kind of so if you want to get on Instagram, there's loads of photos. You just go back through your photos and just see some of these incredible items, and that just the fact they've made their way out to West Texas. But at some point, as I say, if you're we're gonna depending on how this thing takes off, we're gonna look to do other stuff in the future, and if we can get Brian over, both Brians, if we can get Mr. Cannon and Mr. Garcia, in 2 rooms, one microdot exhibition, one exhibition of Oasis DNA collection, to have that, and then maybe other bits to it, whether it's tribute bands or whether it's live interviews or whatever it is. There's if that's the sort of thing you want, people listening, come and tell me about it, and at Oasis Podcast on Twitter, get involved, and then we need to know that there is a desire for this stuff, and if there is, guess what, we'll make it happen.
We will.
So good. Sir, you're doing the Lord's work. God bless you.
Bless you, James, man. I appreciate that, man. That was awesome. Thank you very much.